Okay. All right, so we'll get started. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori Bender, and I am a holistic health coach living in the New York City area. And a few years ago, my own journey to improve my health led me to study nutrition and wellness. I'm a certified health and life coach and an integrative health practitioner. I love helping people improve their health and achieve their goals. For everyone, their road to success is different and often includes many different things. It could be nutrition, managing stress, stopping bad habits. But one of the most fascinating things that I have learned is the power of our mindset when it comes to making changes. My friend Sarah's journey included many things as well, but changing her mindset was one of the biggest shifts she made. It allowed her to move past her negative thoughts that were holding her back so she could achieve her goals. My friend Sara Luna and I have known each other for over 25 years. We grew up together in a small town in Arkansas, a town that Sarah still lives nearby. She is a wife and mother of two boys, and she is also a full-time dental hygienist and now also a marathon runner. Over the last 18 months, Sarah has ran 3 marathons and 1 ultramarathon. During this time, she has also improved her nutrition and lost over 20 pounds. So this evening, Sarah's going to tell us all about how she did it. So thank you, Sara, for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's very humbling, but I appreciate all the work that we did together, Lori. So I'm thankful to be able to share some of that.
Yes, yeah, and you have so much to share. You've done so much for the last few years now. So I want to kind of go back to when you first started running and hear a little bit about, how that started, what got you kind of into wanting to do long distance running.
Yeah, so I started running when I was about 12 years old. I had an older friend that would pick me up and we would run together in the mornings. And so initially I started doing it for weight loss. Like my weight struggle goes back that far. I'm 38 now. But I also did love the running. I loved how I felt afterwards. I loved just being free on the road. And then it was really a part of my life off and on since then. I ran cross country my senior year of high school and then just ran recreationally since then, but taking several years off at a time. So most recently, I had been not running for about 5 years when I started up 18 months ago.
Wow. Okay. So you went from like not running for 5 years to like getting right into marathons again.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So what kind of really like inspired you to get back into it and try it again?
Well, I was just feeling stuck with my weight and didn't feel well, didn't have a lot of energy. And I knew that in the past, running had really helped me a lot just with feeling better and having more energy, fitting in my clothes better. So that's kind of what got me back into it. But I had had a dream of running a marathon since I was probably about 22 years old, but just didn't think that it was possible, really. Like I just thought it was like this dream, but not achievable for me. But the work that I did with you led me to believing that I could do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of what got me back into it.
Yeah, that's so much of it is just like believing that we can even achieve something. So what kind of like how'd you get started? Because you didn't just all of a sudden, sign up for a marathon, I don't think, right? So how did it look when you first got into it?
Right. So I think I had set a small goal with you of running 3 miles without stopping, which back then seemed like a lot because I had not been running for about 5 years. And then when I accomplished that 3 mile goal, it wasn't long after that a marathon came across my path that meant something to me. It was running for a children's home in Haiti that we have some connections with. And so I think it just everything came together. Like I had the desire to train for one, and this was something that meant something to me. So it kind of gave me that added incentive to put the work in. So I did kind of go from not running for 5 years. I built up to 3 miles and then kind of jumped into a 6 month training cycle for the first marathon.
Wow. Um, so, talking about like mindset a lot, as being kind of like one of the big shifts that kind of helps you. Like, what were some of the things that you felt like were kind of like holding you back, like maybe before you even like started to sign up for the marathon? Like, what, you know, what was kind of going through your head that kind of you felt like was a challenge?
Well, a lot of it was like negative self talk that I didn't even realize was going on. It was just this dialogue that I was used to. So that was something that I had to get right in my head, or really just become an observer of what was going on in my mind, and then stop myself in my tracks and like get the dialogue matching up to my goals. Um, so realizing, and again, that was the work with you, Lori, like realizing that we have this critter brain or whatever you want to call it that's
Mm-hmm.
going on in our mind all the time. It's speaking to us, it's our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really probably the biggest thing, was the negative self-talk. And then with nutrition, I had to learn to really give myself grace, learn why I was emotionally eating. I know this isn't necessarily marathon training talk here, but I mean, if you're going to run
Related. Yeah.
on, like, you've got to get your nutrition somewhat on track if you want to feel good and not get
Mm-hmm.
injured and that kind of thing. So I would say that that was the biggest thing, was just the negative self-talk in relation to food and training.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so you kind of like dove into it. You kind of started off with like, okay, I'm just going to do this 3 miles. And some often it's like, it's good to like have that smaller goal, right? So you had the 3 mile goal and you achieved that. And then it was like, okay, well, I've done this, like now let me do a little bit more, right? And so I guess it was that point that you really were like, okay, you've had this dream of running a marathon and you decided that this is the right moment to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that first marathon, I know, was quite different than, one of your most recent marathons, just in terms of, the experience of it and, the recovery. So tell us a little bit about like that first marathon experience and what that was like.
Yeah. So I didn't really know what I was doing with the training. I printed off a plan online,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine, which I wouldn't recommend. I'm sure people do it, but it just wasn't good for me. And I did that because I didn't want to affect any other area of my life. I hadn't learned yet that it was like okay to prioritize myself and my health. So I hadn't learned that yet. So I had these 3 times a week where I thought I could run and it wouldn't, take a time away from anything else in my life. So I did that. I didn't do any strength training either. That was a big mistake. But so when I went out for the first marathon, ran the first 9 miles feeling great. And then it just hit me. I started having some extreme pain in my IT band, and I didn't quit. I didn't want to quit. That wasn't an option in my mind, but I also had to walk. So I walked, jogged for the last, whatever that is, 17 miles, I guess. So I had to, in that moment when I realized I wasn't going to be able to run the whole thing, again, mindset came in, because I was just like, this is where I'm at. Like, this is the situation that I'm in. So how am I going to pivot and just, finish this, still accomplish this goal? And so I did. I like walked, jogged every 5 seconds. I would alternate, and I finished it. So I was so excited when I was done. Like, even though it was very humbling and I was kind of embarrassed because I didn't plan on having to walk for 17 miles and walk, jog. It was just the best feeling, because I had finished, I had accomplished, I had finished that, first marathon.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot through that. I wrote down afterwards what I had done well in training and what I needed to improve on. So that helped me for my next session of training.
Yeah. So then what did you start like incorporating into your training like after that then?
So I started the next session. I ran 4 days a week, and I did 1 day a week of strength training,
Mhm.
and also was just working on my diet, just trying to eat cleaner.
Mhm.
And the second one was better. I shaved a little bit of time off, but I still ended up with the same pain, but a little bit further into the race. So I could tell I had had some improvement, but ended up, I'm not sure, I can't remember at what mile, but ended up having to walk, jog several miles at the end. And some of that was physical pain, but again, I think the mental side of things, I still was learning and growing, and of course I still am, but I just hadn't learned yet how to deal with the pain and kind of push through. And I know there's some pain that we shouldn't push through, but I'm learning that. I'm kind of learning what you can and when you shouldn't. So
Mhm. Well, what would be an example of something you shouldn't push through? I think that's a good thing for us to know. What's
Well, I'm definitely not an expert, but I think, if it causes you to really alter your form,
Mm.
where you cannot keep a form balanced, I think that that's kind of a sign that, you need to walk, or, if you know that you need to drop out, that's fine. You don't want to injure yourself where you can't run later on.
Right.
And I haven't experienced that. I haven't had a true injury pain where I couldn't continue at least the walking pace. So
Mhm. That's good. So okay, so that was your second one, and then it's just gotten better and better. And I know this last one, you said your recovery time was just like so much shorter. So, tell us about that and like what you think really contributed to that.
yeah, so the last one, I was finally able to run the full marathon back in April, which was super exciting. It was a hilly course, the Hog Eye over in Fayetteville or Springdale, excuse me. And I had read a book called Roar, ROAR, by Dr. Stacy Sims, and she is specializes in women's nutrition, hormones, endurance training. And so through that build up for that marathon, I ran 5 days a week, and I did strength training 1 to 2 days a week. I tried to do twice a week. I didn't always, but I really focused on the nutrition that she laid out, which was much higher protein for women endurance athletes, and I just was not taking that adequate amount in. Um, I also have been prioritizing sleep most of the time, and that makes a big difference, just good sleep hygiene. And also amino acids. Like I learned a lot about that and how women really utilize a lot of amino acids, and we need that readily available. So I think those are kind of the main things that helped me. But also on the mental side of things, I knew I was stronger. I'd been running 5 days a week, and I'd been strength training more consistently. But around mile 18 of this marathon, I had similar pain start in my left hip and knee. But I started to think of the narrative like, here we go again. Like, you're just going to have to walk again. And I just became an observer of those thoughts and just stopped and was like, no, this is not what's going to happen today. Like, you are going to run this, and you're not going to let the pain control you. And so I kept telling myself, to stay balanced and not let the pain control you. I probably said that 100 times after that started. And so I was able to stay balanced. I was able to not favor the pain and give in to the pain, but able to just continue running. And that was huge for me mentally, to realize that, I didn't have to let the pain control me. Now, again, I know there's injury pain. This was not that. Um, but that was just such a boost for me. And I just kept thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I'm still running. I can't believe I'm still running. And even though those last probably 4 miles were just painfully slow, it didn't matter. Like, I wasn't stopping. At the end, I was even able to go past a few people. Not, I'm not going to sit here, and I'm not a competitive runner. Someday, maybe if I trained a certain way, I could do that. But it
Mhm.
was just so awesome. Like, it was one of
Yeah.
the best days of my life, honestly.
Aw, that's awesome. And so, a lot of times with anything, we kind of want like instant gratification, or we want something right away. And, it takes a little longer than we think sometimes. So, you know, it's not always this just like light switch kind of goes off and all of a sudden like the mindset changes, or all of a sudden the nutrition's on track. So for you, like, did you, like, how long did it take for you to kind of notice like a shift in what you were doing and like your physical performance, or what was that kind of like timetable for you?
Yeah, it was probably over the course of a year. I mean, I have had some aha moments in life, so I don't want to say that that hasn't happened at all. Probably the moment that I realized that there was this internal dialogue going on all of the time, that was a
Mhm.
huge shift for me. So that would have been a moment, but it still took a while to then tell myself different thoughts, what
Mhm.
that lined up with what my goals were, instead of
Mhm.
constantly just thinking like that's not possible for me, or like I'm careful. Like I am a slower runner, but I'm careful not to say like I would be always like, "Oh, I'm a slow runner, I'm this, I'm that," or people say, "Oh, I'm not a real runner."
Mhm.
I'm trying to really just stop that, and but it's been a process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't realize like what we're telling ourselves becomes true. So if we tell ourselves that we're slow, or we're overweight, or we're never going to accomplish, you know, the run or losing the weight, then we continue to make the decisions that make that true. So it's all about just changing your mindset, even if you're not there yet, even if not quite the runner, or haven't lost the weight, but just taking on that persona of the person that you want to be, then you will start making your habits in line with what you want. So you've accomplished that above and beyond, Sarah. So impressed with like what you've done and accomplished, and you're still going with it. So you have another marathon that you've already, I think, signed up for, right?
Yeah, I have an ultra marathon next month that is timed. It's 6 p.m. to midnight because it's hot this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And do a 2.5 mile trail loop over and over again for 6 hours and see how far you can go. So it's going to be challenging mentally, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because I haven't done a loop like that repeatedly for 6 hours. So it'll be a new
Yeah.
challenge. I love just each time what I've learned about myself, like I said earlier, like what I did well, what I could do different. And, you just learn a lot about what's going on in your head
Mm-hmm.
during those challenges. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good.
Yes. And you're also, a busy person. You're a wife and a mother too, and you work. So, how did you kind of fit this into your schedule? And like, how was there any kind of like boundaries you had to set, or kind of like expectations you had to set with, others to, get your training in?
Yeah, I think one thing was like looking at my friends that do similar things and kind of seeing what worked for them. That was helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I had been wanting to do for the last year was, excuse me, was to start running in the morning at 5. And I just kept thinking, like, I just really want that extra sleep in the morning. I can't do it. Like, I was just thinking all those thoughts. And finally, one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to set the alarm. I'm going to get up and I'm going to give it one day. And if I hate it, then I will not do it again. I'll keep doing it in the evening or, afternoons or whatever. So I set my alarm. I got up at 4:45 and my critter brain was telling me like get back in bed. It's all warm here and cozy and I was like no, like I am doing this today
Mm-hmm.
and I will decide what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I loved it. I mean, I just did. I felt so great. I got it out of the way. That way, when I come home after work and I cook dinner, I was having to kind of rush out the door and go for a run. And so now that part is taken care of for several days a week. And then I do run longer on the weekends, but usually in the morning as well. So morning has been very helpful, just getting it in early. But then I do have to prioritize my getting to bed a little bit earlier or
Mm-hmm.
really exhausted. So
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, and you also have somebody that you run with as well, right?
yes, so on Saturday mornings, I have a friend. We run our long runs together, and that
Mhm.
is just great. Like, just had first of all, she is like a seasoned runner, is qualified and ran Boston, and so she challenges me physically just running with her. But
Mhm.
also, I just know I have a buddy to like chat with and enjoy a beautiful Saturday morning outdoors, and so it's a pleasure to like set my alarm early on Saturday morning. I'm excited to go do it. It's not like, oh, I have to get up early on Saturday. It's like I love
Right,
it.
right. Yes. Yeah, well, you found like a movement that you love and enjoy. And that's so important too, because when people are thinking about getting back into shape and working out, like a lot of times they might have an exercise or something in their head that they think that they should be doing, and if it's not pleasurable, if you don't enjoy it, like it's going to be so much harder to do it. So, the fact that you've found something that you really find pleasure in, and it's going to be so much easier for you to do that. So we're not all going to be marathon runners, and we all don't have to like do running. But it might look like something completely different for someone else. But all of everything that you talked about, still you know applies for, like, just setting your mindset and having accountability with what you were doing as well, like having someone to run with you and help you get up. That's always helpful too for people to um, have someone to do it with. It can be really helpful. So this is all great. I've already gotten a text from someone saying it's so motivating to hear this, Sarah. So thank you so much for sharing all this. So what would you kind of suggest for someone like just wanting to get started, someone who does want to run a marathon or get into running? What would you suggest for them?
I would suggest low heart rate training. That's been huge for me. So you can Google that, like Phil Maffetone, the Maffetone method, or low heart rate training, any of those things, because it really starts with building your endurance. And it's going to be a really slow, jog with some walking thrown in at first, because you're going to be running based on your heart rate. But if you do that, it just really builds up your heart and lungs. And then when you start throwing in some speed work, you can just breathe. I mean, you just feel great. So that's what I would suggest. If it's very humbling to have to stop and walk when your heart rate hits a certain point, but just kind of throw that out the window. If your goal is to be healthy and to slowly improve in your running while still running at a lower heart rate, because that's what will happen over time. Your heart gets more efficient, your speed picks up, and you're still running at that aerobic under your aerobic threshold. So it's that I would recommend that.
Yeah, your friend who you run with actually gave you a great compliment about that recently.
Yeah, yeah. I went running with a neighbor that just goes out for runs and has never done any heart rate training. And so we were running at a pace that was faster than what I would do for a low heart rate run, but I was glad to have company, so I didn't care. And we talked, and the whole time, which that also helps your lungs, talking and running. But at the end, she was like, "You have lungs of steel. You never get winded," which I do get winded, but I guess she just noticed that I didn't seem to be getting winded running and talking with her. So I was encouraged by that.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And I was speaking to my dad the other day, and he sees you at the park running quite often. And he said, he's like, Sarah just makes running look so like easy. It's like
Aw.
walking to her. Yeah. So people are noticing. um, so if anybody has any questions for Sarah, or comments or anything, we can open it up for some questions. You can either put them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself to ask. So don't be shy if you have anything you want to say. We have some other runners on here. Um, so I think Lyndon did get on, and she's been running again. And Jerry's been doing some running recently. Friend Jesse said, so inspired by you.
Thank you.
So what would be something that you would tell somebody who's maybe just getting started with changing up their, nutrition when it comes to running or just, in general? What do you think kind of helped you the most?
Yeah, I think for me, eating to fuel what I wanted to do uh, was very helpful. Instead of thinking like I'm going to run so I can eat more, like I used to think that, but now I'm like I want to eat to fuel what I want to do. And so just eating cleaner, definitely, more protein. And for me, a big thing, this may not, be a struggle for some, but I really struggled with emotional eating. So realizing like, why am I turning to food right now? Am I hungry? Which you are hungry when you run, but am I really hungry or am I just stressed out about something? But I would say definitely like protein, lots of water, electrolytes, and, fruits and veggies. And you can eat a lot, especially if you're eating clean and you really want to, you really want to be fueling your body. Especially as a woman, that's something I learned because I had been doing like intermittent fasting and fasted running, and men do a lot better with that than women. I didn't know that, but I don't know. It has a lot to do with our hormones. I'd have to look it up to really speak with wisdom on the subject, but that was something, a shift for me, is just really fueling my runs and trying to eat well through the week. And I just feel so much better when I do.
Yeah. So we had a question about like what kind of proteins are you eating?
Well, I am not vegan, so I do eat like chicken and grass fed beef, and I do a vegan protein powder. Not every day, but and then I do nuts and seeds, a lot of nut butter. Like I could live on peanut butter if I had to, which I know that's not like super high protein, but I mean it does have protein in it. So those are probably the main things.
And Josh wanted to know if it was something that was hard for you to give up. Was there anything that was kind of difficult for you when you kind of started making a transition to a different diet?
The things that I struggled with giving up were things that I knew were so bad for me, like packaged snacks, like salty, gluten, like Cheez Its, like those types of things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew all along that they were bad for me. So once quit eating them, I just started feeling better. That's the biggest motivator. Like
Yeah.
when you feel better, you want to continue that, behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
um, and honestly, beyond that, like if it's not, processed and stuff, I haven't really given up anything else too much. I still enjoy, things for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, just from me hearing more about like what you've been eating, it sounds like you found a good balance with it too, and you do enjoy, you know, eating, whatever. If you want to have a pizza or something, you can. It's not like you're gonna like deprive yourself of it, um, but you've just, you know, kind of created it more as like a once in a while thing, or not like something that's maybe all the time. Um,
Mhm.
Great, good questions, everybody. Thanks. Um, so yeah, I think if there anybody has anything else, if anybody wants to unmute, feel free to just go ahead and chime in and ask anything else. I hope you all got inspired by this and understand why I wanted to have this talk with Sarah, because she's just so inspiring and has so many great um, information for everybody to hear. So I'm really glad that you were able to do this for us. And I did do another chat like this with my mom. So if you missed that one, we talked about her reversing her diabetes. And I have a recording of that one as well. So if anybody wants to hear about that one, she goes into how she changed her diet and she lost over 60 pounds and reversed her diabetes. Doesn't have to take any medications anymore. So it's another success story. She might be talking, but Mom, we can't hear you. Sorry. Oh no. Hi. You're gonna have to get one of the girls to get your mic on. So Chris says, "Great job achieving your goals. Very inspiring."
Thank you.
Yeah. So when's your next run?
July 17th.
July 17th. Okay. So this is a summer one. I think most of the time you've done like a fall one, right?
Yeah, this will be my first summer. It's been fall or spring so far.
Yeah. Okay. So it's gonna be a little different. And in Arkansas, so I know it's gonna be hot. What's
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Oh, it's in Oklahoma. Okay.
Still, yeah, it'll be hot.
Still. Yeah. Speaking of that, like hydration, what's kind of how do you stay hydrated, especially during your runs or with your training? What have you been doing for that?
Yeah, so obviously water. I do try to get half of my body weight in ounces a day. But electrolytes have been huge for me. And of course, there's a ton of drinks out there. I chose one based upon this book that I've read that's specific to women, although this drink is beneficial for men too. But it's called Scratch, Skratch, and it's got the right balance of glucose and then the right amount of electrolytes, and it's just been perfect, like spot on for. I'm a sweater, like I sweat buckets. I mean, it's salty sweat, it's just sweat. So it's been really helpful where I have been, feeling good running. Last Wednesday afternoon I ran in the heat. It was like 94 degrees and I did 8 miles with this Scratch, and it was, it was good.
Wow. Gosh.
Yeah.
And can you also share the amino acids that you've been taking? I know you were taking a specific powder that you felt really helped you with energy.
Yes, it's called Fun Dominoes. So it is just been really helpful for me. I took it because someone recommended it for recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I started taking it, I try to take it daily, and then you increase the amount you take around races or hard training sessions. But as soon as I took it the first time, I just felt like I was giving my body something that it had been lacking. And I didn't get any kind of an energy buzz or anything like that. But I just felt like it was like seeping into all of these little cracks in my body where I just needed something. And I didn't even know I had that need. So it's been super helpful. I would highly recommend it, especially for women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna when I post this on YouTube, I'll include a link to all the resources that she's talked about. So the book that you talked about, I'll put in there. The hydration and these amino acids, we'll put those in there so everybody can check them out if they want. All right. Well, if there's any other questions from anybody, anything else that you want to share, Sarah, or anything that we haven't covered that you think would be helpful for everybody to hear?
Well, I just, all of this was possible through you, Lori, honestly. You in your health coaching and just accomplish goals, learning how to create healthy habits. And it has been what has helped me accomplish all of these things. So just continue on with your work. I know that most of your friends probably already know that, but anybody else that's listening, that's looking for somebody to help them achieve things that they thought were impossible, Lori is your person.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yes, I'm happy to talk with anybody who wants to kind of learn about habit change or health. So please, let me know. I really just enjoy doing this. This is my side passion right now. I'm still working in real estate in New York City, so I have that also going. But this is really just what fulfills me, and I love hearing about people's stories and what they're doing and how they're improving their health and helping them achieve it if I can. So thanks, Sarah. All right. Well, oh wait, we might have another question here. Um, okay, yeah, so we have another question. So throughout the training, did you experience any pains like knees, feet, shin splints? And if so, how did you manage the pain?
Yeah, so I did have some in training. So, some people call them niggles. That's kind of a weird word, but where you just get like pains here and there, but they don't persist. If that happened, I would, keep going, see if the pain didn't get worse through the run. I would just keep going. I did have a few times where I was doing a long run, and towards the end, I started having like shooting pain in one of my knees, and so I had to walk the last mile, and I want to say I took maybe 2 weeks off and just did walking and strength training. And that was hard to take that time off running, but it was so been was going on in that short amount of time, and then you're not really going to lose that much aerobic fitness in 2 weeks anyways. And so then I also freed up more time just to walk, which is super beneficial for running, and to strength train, which is so important. And I find myself pushing that aside to go for a run when I really shouldn't. So that's kind of how I would manage. I've never had anything that lasted more, excuse me, than probably a couple of weeks. So, but I know, I've had friends that have gone, and actually I did go to the chiropractor a few times for my hips. But beyond that, I never had to go to a physical therapist or anything, but I know that's beneficial too sometimes.
Mhm. And then when you say you started doing weight training, like what type of weight training were you doing? Like what kind of exercises were important?
So a lot of body weight stuff like push-ups and like side leg lifts, clamshells, bridge ups. And then I do some just dumbbell curls and weighted squats. I do dumbbell squats at home. Some lunges, backward lunges, forward lunges really hurt my knees, but backwards don't. And then I'll do like a 10-minute ab and core video, Fitness Blender. I don't know if y'all have ever used that, but they're on YouTube. They're all free. And I try to pick out a core video to do twice a week as well.
Great. Okay. Fitness Blender
So
is
I kind of
really
like do like, I would think like,
okay.
yeah, I would think like upper body, core, and lower body. That's kind of how I would try to do, those areas twice a week, all together if possible. But sometimes I wouldn't, I would have like 15 minutes. So I would just say, I'm going to go do a quick ab video. And then later on, I'll do my upper body stuff, while dinner's cooking,
Hmm.
or clothes are drying or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned it like that because you just kind of worked it in when you could. And a lot of times we also think like if we're going to put aside time to work out or do something, it has to be this like dedicated time and it's got to be an hour out of our day or something. And, just being able to like get it in where you can was enough to what you needed to do, and just it doesn't have to be this like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym
Yeah,
for an hour.
Jerry helped me with that actually. She kind of mentioned that when we were doing our calls together, and I was like, yeah, that's right. I can do that.
Oh, my mom just shared that she's like, remember that your grandmother walked a 26-mile marathon when she was 79 years old. That's
Wow.
right. Yeah, she's a superstar too.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Sarah, thanks again. This was so nice. You've answered so many great questions for us. And I'll be posting this and linking Sarah's information too. So if you guys have any other questions that you want to connect, be able to do that. And yeah, I think we covered everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Right.
for doing this, Lori.